Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be breaking down Variant 6 Chapter 1 full-on exploration guide. I do realize that I'm starting to post my exploration guides before I have posted my easy path completion guide, but life's been busy and stuff happens. So in this variant, first and foremost, it's basically a villain variant where all your non-villains will just not be viable options because every single quest has 3 global nodes, and those are Black ISO Resonance, where your hero champions do not take any damage for first 20 seconds, I think, and then just die. So yeah, you basically die in 20 seconds and you can't help that. Then you have Malevolence, all non-villain attackers unable to gain power. Malignance, all non-villain attackers are unable to heal through any means. So this means, yes, no hero champions are welcome, but you can still use them for synergies, which is going to be very important, especially in some cheese methods, so on and so forth. But let's actually start with the quest. So just to remind everybody, we are working with all the villain champions in the game. Currently we have 55 villains. I actually thought we would have a bit more, but that's all that's available to us. And in short, Venom kind of proves again why he's the variant MVP, and at this point I think I am ready to call Venom the best variant champion overall. So if your variant content is your next focus in game, you definitely should rank up that guy. He's great help for variants 2, as he's extra large, and then he's amazing for variants 5 and 6 as well. Right, let's go path by path. Now, this henchman, when triggering the Fury buff, villain attackers will passively purify all debuffs. That's kind of cool, especially combining with poison. So you have poison debuff placed on you every 7 seconds, and then blood in the water, which is kind of irrelevant. And quite honestly, you just want to bring in a poison immune champion or champion who can purify all those poisons, because when it comes to triggering Fury buffs that frequently, you can't really keep up unless using some very specific, less than perfect matchups. So for this lane, you just want to bring in poison immune champions, or Ghost, for instance, Omega Red, your poison immune villains, and you will do fine. It is not the easiest path because you do have some relatively tricky opponents. There's Iceman to deal with, so you do want somebody that's Cold Snap immune as well. And then there's Massacre and Wasp and Storm Pyramid X and Ultron and Annihilus, and they are not the easiest bunch of defenders to face off against, so I do not suggest to do this path first. The middle lane is Henchman. Again, you just purify all debuffs whenever you gain a Fury buff, and you kind of want to do that because the opponents are Man-Thing, Abomination, Warlock, and Apocalypse, all of whom will be capable of placing debuffs on you. But again, it's a relatively straightforward path. You can bring in any champion who has the immunities needed to poison, and this mainly poison, to be honest, and that's about it. But the right path is arguably the easiest. It has the Mastermind node, which increases your bleed, poison, incinerate, and shock debuff duration by 100%, which is helpful. And then you only need to contend with physical and energy resistance. But you can bring in Mystic villains and nullify those. Or you can use just damage or time effects, and you're going to be perfectly fine. And that is also the easiest path overall, I think, to take. Only kind of real annoying defender here would be Mephisto, where you would want to have Incinerate immunity or you want slow play it. When it comes to the boss is also fairly straightforward. It has Mastermind, which again increases your debuff duration, and Henchman, so you can purify all the debuffs. And the debuffs that you will be getting in this fight is from long distance relationship. But you kind of like those long distance relationship debuffs because you can get that willpower heal, so it doesn't really matter. And then there's explosive personality and armor. So if you can armor break, that's perfectly fine. And other than that, it's a bare bones Rhino. You can quite literally bring in any champion for this fight that you can use in variant content, and you will be able to one-shot this fight unless you mess up yourself. So this boss doesn't really require any specific counters at all. Just take him down with whoever you have in already. So that's quest 1, and quest 1 is kind of straightforward. there is no real crazy cheese available, but at the same time there are no real problem fights, not even the boss fight. Now we're going to be jumping in Quest 2, and Quest 2 is cheesable. Entire quest, every single lane. Right, so we're gonna go with Genius, Madness, and Energize. So Genius, if you have an armor up buff active, every time you strike the opponent, you will be dealing, well, you will be burning that power. So if we're gonna take a look at the villains here again, who have easily, readily available armor up buffs, and we're gonna go on. Dr. Octopus can have it, it's not the most reliable thing. If you bring in Silver Surfer with Dr. Doom can have it as well, but those are not your perfect options to benefit from that armor buff. Then you have Kang, where you can basically just shred to the opponent and they will never gain power. Iron Patriot can have access to armor buff. Obviously, Red Skull is the Mr. Armor himself. And other than that, Thanos, I think Thanos also has an armor buff, and you have the Ultrons, and you obviously have the Venom and Venom the Duck and Vulture as well, whose face I'm covering here. But the second node is actually much more readily accessible to cheese methods, and it's called Madness. So when triggering an armor break debuff, villain package will also apply passive power lock to the defender, which will last until the last armor break ends. And what does that mean? That pretty much every single fight in this quest, because the Madness node is on every single lane. So you have Genius, Madness, Energize, Enhance Special 1, perfect. Mastermind, Madness, Armor, nobody cares. Madness and Power Snack. So we have Madness on every single lane here. And what does that mean is champions like Venom, for instance, and Venom places armor break on his heavy attack. You can just drop your heavy attack, get opponent to the corner, and keep spamming your heavy attacks. You can do the same thing with Dr. Doom if you are using Mr. Fantastic synergy. You can do very similar thing, or pretty much the same thing, with Annihilus. And I think Magneto should also work, so let's just quickly bring in a couple of champions to demonstrate, I suppose. So we need Mr. Fantastic and what Annihilus, I suppose. And where's my Annihilus? Has to be somewhere. Here we go. And all of these champions and a few more, like I believe Immortal Abomination, can do pretty much the same thing now. With one of his synergies, where you can armor break the opponent, you can just cheese them in a corner. So I'm not going to do like full fights, I'm just gonna showcase the cheese method itself, and it works for every single fight in this quest, because every single fight has Madness active. So let's go. She's armor broken, wonderful. She cannot gain any power, and you just get her to corner and start spamming your heavy attacks. Because I have Annihilus synergy as well, every heavy is guaranteed to be crit at this point, and you can just do this for days. Now with Dr. Doom you do need to be a bit careful, because you can kind of push yourself out of the corner, but for the most part you're gonna be perfectly fine. Okay, this might be painful against okay, I'm just gonna bring in Magneto. With Magneto, to access the armor break, you need to get to your level 2. But after level 2, every time you knock down the opponent, you will gain a prowess buff. And every time you gain a prowess buff, you refresh your armor break. And you can basically do exactly the same thing as I spoken about before. So if Magneto gets to level 2, so you can see his armor broken. And that's it. You can just spam your heavy attacks, and jab's a good one. Absolutely nothing to worry about. Very easy, very cheesy. Oh wait, right. Against non-metals, I suppose. Against non-metals, it's not as straightforward because you cap out at 5. But it still kind of works. It's not the best one. Now we're going to check out Annihilus, because Annihilus obviously accesses a ton of armor breaks as well. Keep in mind, this is all unboosted. No suicide masteries, but yeah, let's go. So we have armor break on the Doc-Ock. Wonderful. And you can just spam your heavy attacks. They also have chance to inflict the armor break. Not much to stress about. You can obviously play with dash back intercepts and what have you, however you please. But this is still perfectly acceptable way how to cheese these fights with Annihilus. Because you have good enough chance to place a new armor break on each of your heavy attacks. So I can just do that. If you want to throw your special attacks, fine, no problem. But it works perfect. And showcase that, I showcase that. I suppose Venom is the last one left, and Venom is probably the easiest one to use. Because yeah, you just need to drop that initial heavy attack, dash in at opponents, and they're gone. And yeah, that's it. You can just spam your heavies, and you can do that in every single lane of this quest. When it comes to countering the opponents, only kind of like champions to be waried of, I suppose, would be Darkhawk, because if you knock down Darkhawk, then obviously he's going to try to auto block, but he can't auto block heavy attacks, so the fight might take a bit longer, which shouldn't be a problem. Havoc, obviously, you do want to have that armor up buff, especially because when Havoc is power locked, he gains his charges at double the speed, so you definitely want to have that armor up buff to counter it. Magic's actually harmless fight, you don't need a counter for that, because if she's not gaining any power, she's never triggering Limbo, and you're perfectly good there. Be careful on Professor X, because Falter might mess you up. Armor Break and Killmonger, that sorts itself out, and yeah, that's about it. And then we're going to take a look at the boss. And the boss has dash vulnerability, which can let you do a lot more damage if you do choose to do dash back intercept. And it has unblockable finale. Now that node is again made completely irrelevant by the presence of Madness node. So any single cheese method that I showcased, and there are a few more, I'm not going to say there are not. I think Red Goblin can do something similar. And there, I'm sure Terax can do something, so on and so forth. But yeah, you can just heavy spam this guy in corner. So chapter 1 of variant 6, especially quest 2, is just cheese through it to no day's end. And tomorrow I will upload my exploration guide for chapter 2 of variant 6. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons. And I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.